Hello and welcome to English for Everyone, where we practice real-life American English. Today we're going to learn to avoid some important mistakes. So let's get started. First, this is not correct.
So you will not have too much time answering the question.
I cannot say you will not have too much time answering the question. After have too much time, we cannot use a gerund answering. We have to use the infinitive to answer. So it's correct to say you will not have too much time to answer the question. This is correct. I cannot use answering in this case. Example, I can say he won't have too much time to answer the questions. But it's better to say he won't have a lot of time. He won't have a lot of time to answer the questions. Not answering, but to answer. Pronunciation, use the t sound. Not to, but t. The word is not stressed. We pronounce it in a relaxed way. Closed sound, t. He will not have a lot of time to answer the questions because it's a time test. Let's practice. Will he have a lot of time to answer the questions? That's right. He will not have a lot of time to answer the questions. Let's practice with won't. Remember, won't is the contraction of will not. Use the long O sound like no and go. Won't. I can say he won't have a lot of time to answer the questions. Let's practice with won't. Will he have a lot of time to answer the questions? That's right. He won't have a lot of time to answer the questions. It's a time test. This is also not correct.
I know it's an advice that's hard to follow, but
I cannot say it's an advice that's hard to follow. Why not? Because advice is not countable. I cannot use the article an advice. I cannot say an advice. I cannot say a good advice. I cannot say advices. The word advice is not countable. Keep watching until the end to practice with this difficult word. This is also not correct.
you just let your imagination flow. Even if you say things you don't really believe in, that's fine.
I cannot say you say things you don't really believe in. I cannot use the preposition in. Just believe. When you talk about things that people say, things that you say, or things that other people say, we say you believe, not believe in. I believe the things you say. It's not correct to say I believe in the things you say. No, I believe the things you say. I think they're true. Let's practice. Do you believe the things I say? Thank you. So when do we say believe in? We can use believe in when we talk about religions. Example, he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't think God exists. That's when we can say believe in. Let's practice. Is he an atheist? That's right, he's an atheist. Does he believe in God? That's right, he doesn't believe in God. Or what about Bigfoot? I don't think he exists. So I can say I don't believe in Bigfoot. Bigfoot is this creature that lives in the forest, supposedly, but I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't think he exists. What about you? Do you believe in Bigfoot? That's right, I don't believe in Bigfoot either. This is also not correct.
And take notes for question 2, 3, and 4.
I cannot say take notes for question 2, 3, 4. It's more than one question. I have to put an S. Questions. Take notes for questions 2, 3, and 4. Example, he's taking notes. He's taking notes for questions 2, 3, and 4. Let's practice. What is he doing? Is he taking notes for questions 2, 3, and 4? That's right. He's taking notes for questions 2, 3, and 4. This is also not correct.
And the last but not least, your writing part.
I cannot say and the last but not least. This is an expression. We do not use the article the. I cannot say and the last but not least. The expression is and last but not least. No article the. We have to say it this way. And what does it mean? It means I'm about to say something that is equally important to the things I said before. Example. And last but not least, and I introduce someone who's equally as important as the people that came before him. Remember the expression, and last but not least, no article the. This is also not correct.
If you don't have time, don't waste your time writing conclusion in both texts.
I cannot say, don't waste time writing conclusion. Why not? Because conclusion is a countable noun. I need an article. I can say, don't waste time writing a conclusion, or for a specific situation, don't waste time writing the conclusion. Remember, with conclusion, we need an article. A conclusion, one in general, or the conclusion, a specific conclusion. Example, he's taking a timed test, and he's running out of time. Should he waste time writing a conclusion? That's right, he shouldn't waste time writing a conclusion. Or I can say the for a specific conclusion. Should he waste time writing the conclusion? That's right, he shouldn't waste time writing the conclusion. It's a timed test. He doesn't have time. This is also not correct.
But don't do this the day before the test. I want you to have your energy on the actual test.
I cannot say I want you to have your energy on the actual test. We don't use on in this case. We use for. You have energy for things. Not on things, but for things. I want you to have your energy for the actual test. We have to use for in this case. Example, she's taking a test, and she needs to have energy for her test. Not on her test, but for her test. Let's practice. She's taking a test. Does she need to have energy for the test? That's right, she needs to have energy for the test. This is also not correct.
And on the test day, get a good night's sleep, eat a healthy breakfast, arrive at the test early.
I cannot say arrive at the test early. You can arrive at the testing site, a place, but not at the test. If you talk about test, we need for the test. If you use the word test, we have to use for the test. Arrive for the test early, or arrive at the testing site early. These are correct. Example, he arrived at the testing site early. He arrived for the test early. Good job. Let's practice. Did he arrive at the testing site early? That's right, he arrived at the testing site early. Did he arrive for the test early? That's right, he arrived for the test early. This is also not correct.
And of course, you're going to come back to this channel and comment your score.
I cannot say you're going to come back to this channel and comment your score. We cannot use the verb comment in this way. We have to say you're going to leave your score in the comments or put your score in the comments. But I cannot say you're going to comment your score. We cannot use the verb comment in this way. This is also not correct.
The second tip, understand what are the keywords for this text and kind of remember which paragraph they're mentioned in.
I cannot say understand what are the key words for this text. Because I say understand, I cannot use a question structure. I have to use a positive structure. So it's correct to say understand what the key words are for this text. We have to use a positive structure in this case. So again, we cannot say understand what are the key words. We have to say understand what the key words are for this text. Example, I understand what the keywords are for this text. Let's practice. Do you understand what the keywords are for this text? That's right. I understand what the keywords are for this text. Very good. This is also not correct.
It's related to campus lives.
I cannot say it's related to campus lives. We say it's related to campus life. We use a singular noun, life. We don't say lives in this case. It's related to campus life in general. Example, there's students on campus and they enjoy campus life. They enjoy everything related to campus life. Not campus lives, but campus life. The idea, their life living on a campus. Let's practice. Do they enjoy campus life? That's right, they enjoy campus life. Do they enjoy everything related to campus life? That's right, they enjoy everything related to campus life. And don't say this either.
This part is the part I don't like the most.
This is the one I don't like the most? This is not correct. We cannot use don't with the most. We can't use a negative here. We have to use a different verb. You can say, I dislike this one the most, or I hate this one the most, or I like this one the least. These are all correct. But don't say, I don't like this one the most. Example, he doesn't like vegetables, but he dislikes broccoli the most. I can say this, or I can say, he hates broccoli the most. But I cannot say he doesn't like broccoli the most. So he dislikes broccoli the most, or he hates broccoli the most, or he likes broccoli the least. Maybe. Let's practice. Does he dislike broccoli the most? That's right, he dislikes broccoli the most. Does he hate broccoli the most? That's right, he hates broccoli the most. The idea, he doesn't like any of the vegetables, but he hates broccoli the most. That's the number one vegetable he hates. This is also not correct.
In this text, the professor covers the topic of.
Pronunciation. I cannot say the topic of. The word is pronounced of. We need a closed, relaxed sound of. The topic of. Example. This is the Statue of Liberty. Not the Statue of Liberty. Not the open sound of, but of, the closed sound. This is the Statue of Liberty. Let's practice. What is this? Is this the Statue of Liberty? That's right, this is the Statue of Liberty. So keep watching to practice how to use this difficult word correctly. One of our members asked us to explain the difference between these two words. The first word, advise. The second word, advice. So pronunciation. The first word with the S has the Z sound like zebra. Advise, advise. And this is a verb. You advise somebody to do something. And the second word is advice. The C makes the S sound like in star and sun. Advice. And advice is a noun. It is a non-countable noun. More on that later. Let's talk about the verb advise and how we use it. First, it's a formal word. I don't use it in my daily conversation. It's a more formal word. So example, they advised him to be careful. We use him plus to and a simple verb. They advised him to be careful. And the member wanted to know, can I say they advised that he be careful? Yes, you can say that too. But the first example is more common and preferred in most cases. But you'll hear both. They're both correct. So let's practice. Did they advise him to be careful? That's right, they advised him to be careful. Now let's talk about advice. Advice is a noun. It's a non-countable noun. So I cannot say an advice. I say some advice. Let me give you some advice. His father gave him some advice. Remember, the C makes the S sound here. Advice. His father gave him some good advice. Let's practice. Did his father give him some good advice? That's right, his father gave him some good advice. And keep watching to practice more with this tricky word, advice. This is not correct. We cannot say an advice. The word advice is not a countable noun, so we cannot say an advice. We just say advice.
I can give advice, but I'm afraid it's going to be blunt.
I teach literature. I don't give advice.
So we don't tend to give advice on how to get your boyfriend to commit.
I don't do things. I give advice.
Because the word advice is not countable, the most common way to use it is with some advice. Let me give you some advice. Let me give you some good advice. You cannot say a good advice because it's not countable. Use some advice or some good advice.
Can I give you some advice?
I'd appreciate that.
Can I give you some advice?
Can I offer you some advice, sister to sister?
Well, that's some good advice.
Some advice about keeping secrets.
Over this domain you rule. But let me give you some good advice.
Example, he's giving his son some advice. He's giving his son some good advice. Let's practice. What is he doing? Is he giving his son some good advice? That's right, he's giving his son some good advice. So it's not correct to say an advice or a good advice. Does that mean we can never count the word advice? No, we can count it. If you really want to count the word, you say a piece of advice.
Let me give you a piece of advice.
Let me give you a piece of advice here.
Let me give you a piece of advice.
Can I give you a piece of advice?
Let me give you all a piece of advice.
Top 5 worst pieces of advice from people who don't know what they're talking about.
India. Okay, well, those are all good pieces of advice. I really appreciate it.
Before I went off to college at Yale, he gave me 3 pieces of advice.
Example, his father gave him one very good piece of advice. One very important piece of advice. Let's practice. Did his father give him one very good piece of advice? That's right, his father gave him one very good piece of advice. So remember, the word advice is not countable. We cannot say an advice or a good advice. The most common way to use the word is with some advice. And if you really want to count it, you can count it by saying a piece of advice. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. And if you want to become a member, click the join button. And we'll see you next time.